Hey you guys, welcome to Alex and Andy Live here with Shanghai Daily. We are coming to you from Shanghai, China, where we are currently on day number 23 of our citywide lockdown. Some bad news to share with you today, but first, Alex, how was your day?
Well, not bad. I slept in a bit late today. I had stayed up last night to call some of my family members back home. Of course, 12-hour time difference from the Eastern time zone in the U.S. And so a lot of times if I want to get a hold of them, I've got to do it late at night here. But did that. Got some extra sleep this morning, and here we are. How about you?
Nice, yeah, pretty much the same, not much. There was a bit of drama in my compound today where people were complaining about some Tuangou deliveries that didn't make it in. So there was a bit of a call to action in our WeChat group, which was deleted in the end by the Juweihui, so that wasn't good news. Obviously, things got a bit out of hand. So we are, I'm not sure what's going to happen now for the Tuangou, but I'll try and report back to you guys tomorrow. But yeah, as I mentioned before, we do have some bad news today, which is to do with the rising numbers. So we're going to chat with our colleague, reporter Yang Jian, about that. Bring him in now. Yang Jian, can you hear?
Hi, Alex. Hi, Andy.
How are you doing today?
Hi.
All right, good. So yeah, I think the big news from today's announcement today from the city is that everyone wants to kind of know about is the rise in cases. So it looks like after we had a few days of decreasing cases, today we got the report that the numbers had gone up about 30% from the previous day. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What did you learn about that?
Yeah, sure. The number of the COVID-19 cases rebounded, you mentioned, by over 30% on Friday to over 20,000 again. And after, I think, 5 consecutive days of decline. And that's why the official from the Shanghai Health Commission, she said today that the pandemic situation in Shanghai remains tough and complicated. And just one day before, the vice mayor just mentioned that the pandemic has been relieved, but today the situation became tough and complicated again. And the official explained that most of the new infections were found in the cities locked down and controlled areas, which means there were positive cases there in the last 7 or 14 days. So there might be some cross-infections among the family members and the neighbors, because the official once mentioned that the transmission among the family members is one of the main cause of spread of the virus in Shanghai right now. So that's maybe the one of the reasons for the rebound. And she also mentioned that the large majority of the new cases, over 95%, tested positive inside the central quarantine sites for the close contacts and the other risky groups. So that's the good news, meaning the community transmission, like the official mentioned before, has kept being curbed in the city. And the new cases were mainly from 5 local districts, including Pudong, Songjiang, Baoshan, Huangpu, and Yangpu. And each of the districts reported 800 to 3,000 new cases during the recent PCR screening. So just bringing up the city's total number of daily infections. And the official also explained that the resurgence mainly happened at local communities, especially the old neighborhoods where residents are still using shared bathrooms and kitchens, and along with some local construction sites and companies. And some of them have restarted productions. So I think one of the main points is those in the old neighborhoods, and it is also the first time that the official said that some pandemic is happening in these old communities. And the government once launched a toilet campaign across the city's old communities to install private toilets for each household. And the target is to eliminate all the chamber pots by the end of the year. I think the campaign has to be suspended due to the pandemic. So people have to share the bathrooms, and some prevention, COVID-19 prevention and control measures cannot be perfectly implemented in these old neighborhoods. So also today in some local districts like Minhang and Baoshan, they are now providing some portable toilets to these old communities, just as a makeshift solution during the pandemic. And also the government mentioned its 9 actions to remove the community transmission sooner. And among the 9 actions, there is a so-called spot removal campaign, and which will mainly focus on the places like the older communities, where a large number of cases were detected. So hopefully the pandemic there will be put under control soon after the city's disinfection and control campaign, Alex.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, good to hear. Makes sense. Yeah, we hate to see the numbers going back up again, but it is what it is, and we'll see if we can't get it under control. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that information, Yang Jian. We will catch up with you again same time tomorrow. See you then.
Okay, see you.
Bye. Okay, so yeah, a lot of information to consume there, I guess you could say. Alex, the numbers I'll just read again. We had 2,736 new asymptomatic cases and 20,634 new symptomatic cases. Now, that is a jump of over 30% on the day before. Now, Yang Jian mentioned that a lot of those cases were because of some older communities which have shared facilities. Now, you may not realize, especially if you're not in Shanghai, that such a futuristic megatropolis, I guess you could call it, still has a lot of apartments which are old style, whereby they have shared kitchens, shared toilets, shared bathrooms. Of course, that doesn't bode well with lockdown and keeping people separated. Was there anything else you found interesting in there, Alex?
Well, I think that what you just mentioned is particularly interesting for many people who've never lived in Shanghai before. You might not realize that a lot of the older buildings, these buildings aren't really old. They're not 100 years old or anything, but they're older style houses, and they are just different from, like, I live in a relatively new apartment complex, and so everything in our apartment is just inside. But there are some older style, I think they call them like Nongtang or something like that in Shanghai. And what that is like alley houses or sort of row houses, kind of something like that. Anyway, what it is a lot of these houses will have some shared common areas, be it a shared kitchen or a shared, for example, laundry area, or sometimes even a restroom or bathroom area. And it'll be shared amongst more than one household. And so obviously it's hard to keep out or to sort of strictly adhere to the pandemic prevention measures when you're sharing facilities and when you have to share facilities with other households. And so I think that could be, and if the numbers bear that out, that could be one of the things that's happening.
Yeah, definitely something we need to keep an eye on. But I did hear also some good news regarding the numbers. I'll bring us over now really quickly to show you guys a little bit of a graph. Graphs are always awesome. This is my Twitter, by the way, if you want to follow me at AndyBXXX. Here I found this graph today, which shows, amongst all the doom and gloom with the rising numbers, that actually the new cases that are not in isolation are actually still on quite a steady downward trend. So I think that is really good news. Alex, what do you make of this graph?
Well, that's good. I mean, it means that there are fewer cases out and about in the city, and not necessarily out and about. That's the wrong terminology to use, I guess.
Right. No one's out and about, really.
But there are fewer people that are testing positive just from people that are in their apartments or in their communities. And most of the people testing positive were either close contacts, or we've got people that are showing symptoms who weren't before we were in central quarantine. So that seems to be a positive trend amongst sort of the negative trend of the rise in numbers. I think one other thing, and I think, it's something that I'd like to address just really quickly, is like, obviously the policy is that when you test positive, you're meant to be taken into central quarantine as soon as possible or that day. But we know that that's not always being implemented. I mean, even our colleague Amy, who we've been talking to the last few days, told us that she tested positive right around April 8th, I think she said, but wasn't sent to quarantine for at least a week, if not 8 or 9 days after that. And I know personally several anecdotes of people that I know that had a similar situation. And so
Exactly.
If we're going to send everyone to central quarantine, I think it's important. I mean, look, I'm not saying, and nobody wants to go to quarantine, right? But if the numbers are spreading because of this, I think that maybe a more uniform implementation of that policy, if that's what the policy is probably in order. Because, if you're testing positive, but then you still have to go downstairs to do a PCR test, that's probably not the best way to handle it, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if
Yeah.
the policy
No.
is quarantine, then they should go ahead and do that. And if that's not the policy, fine. But we know that's what it is right now, and so therefore that's sort of my opinion on it. Because we know that there are people that are testing positive but staying at home for several days after that. So obviously that's good. If you test positive, I know nobody wants to go to quarantine. I mean, if I were to test positive, knock on wood, tomorrow, I wouldn't want to go to quarantine for 10 days either. However, you know what I mean? You understand the point that I'm making.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think, and the point you make also about these policies not being put to use over the wide area in a uniform way is also very important. Obviously, Shanghai has been going through quite a tough time. There, at one point, weren't enough spaces in these central quarantine spaces. So, like you said, people are testing positive, and despite the rule being that they should be taken away that day to central quarantine, which would be ideal in terms of getting the numbers down, they are being left at home. And like you said, there are many cases where this is the case, including here in my Xiaoqu. Today we have a few cases from 2 days ago. They still haven't been removed. So yeah, this is obviously going to show up as a lag in the numbers, maybe, which obviously isn't ideal. But yeah, the numbers are going up. The numbers don't lie. Whether they are delayed or not, who knows? But yeah, hopefully we can see some kind of a downturn again shortly. Someone just asked really quickly, what's the daily death rate at the moment? Yesterday were 12 new deaths. They were all elderly people with serious underlying conditions. The oldest was actually 99 years of age. So yeah, there were 12 more deaths. I think the number is approaching 40 now, which isn't nice, but still very low compared to international standards. Joel Alberto asked, how did everyone cope with the rain this morning? Actually, the rain was nice. What do you reckon, Alex?
I guess I slept in, so I didn't even see it.
Didn't even hear it?
I guess in my compound right now, we are allowed to go. We are allowed to go downstairs and walk around inside our compound. Of course, everyone's being asked to limit that. I just went downstairs today to throw out the rubbish or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, but so I guess people stayed in today. If it was raining this morning, I wouldn't know. I was a hermit today in my bed for most of the day, watching movies and stuff.
Nice.
I'm moving around today.
Hey, so Joel Alberto says, I think Alex was referring to 新式里农. Were you, Alex? The new style houses, new style old houses? Yeah, they're being refurbished.
Yes. Well, I'm referring to both that and the old style old houses. There are still a lot of Nongtang type of areas in Shanghai where the houses are. I mean, the houses are old and they're not new. They're at least 20 or 25, 30 years old. So, and or they older, or older, right? Exactly, and or significantly older even. And they are still set up in that sort of old type of way where there are shared facilities. And also there are very narrow hallways that don't have a whole lot of space.
And stairways.
And they're usually wooden staircases, and they're usually only 3 or 4, maybe 5 stories tall. But they have wooden staircases and narrow hallways, so people have to pass in close. It's obviously not designed. Nothing is exactly designed with pandemic prevention in mind, because this sort of thing is something, you know what I mean. But it's not, it's not like earthquake prevention in an earthquake zone or typhoon prevention in a typhoon. It's totally, this is something that society, in our modern day society, it's just hard to just curb a pandemic because of the way that we live and how many people are on the planet and how many people are in this city. But yeah, so that's, you are right about that. Is what I was referring to. But there are also old style ones as well.
Yeah, no, it is difficult. A lot of those places.
If you don't mind, sorry, Andy. I want to say one more. The reason I brought up the thing about people testing positive and staying at home is not because I want everyone to be dragged away to quarantine right away. Like I said myself, like if I test positive, I would again. I don't want to go to quarantine either, but I mean I will if I have to. You understand the point. And the reason why I brought it up was because I think that could be part of the reason that we're seeing this sort of bounce up and down effect in the numbers. there are people who tested positive a week ago, but that's being reported in today's numbers, then the numbers aren't always going to exactly reflect the reality of the situation. And so we see a bit of a sort of a seesawing of the numbers. And I think, and I'm suspecting that part of that, if the case isn't reported on the day that the person first tests positive, you might see that sort of up and down effect of the sort of oscillating of the numbers, I suspect.
Yeah, well, I think that's definitely what we're seeing. I'm going to bring the page we normally try to look at every day. Here's that graph with the numbers that we normally try to look at. As you can see, the numbers are higher than at least the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Obviously, I can't see the representation with the two added together, so it could be very close to this day here, which is around April the 16th.
23,370.
Yeah, so the numbers are, it's a bit of a yo-yo, you know what I mean? So
Yo-yo.
hopefully we don't see that. Hopefully we don't see that continuing. But I just want to mention also, like Yang Jian said about those old the old houses, they are trying to replace and build separate toilets in all those places. So he also said they're putting in some portable toilets there so that people can kind of separate a little bit. Someone on our WeChat group who's watching said, no food, but free toilet. Nice point there. Someone else said they have run out of toilet paper. So yeah, just a few little comments there, you guys.
Yeah, we did.
I just want to quickly.
Our building, so.
Go ahead.
We did a toilet paper twin go in our building today. So.
Oh, nice. We got given some toilet paper yesterday from the committee, so that was good. Somebody said, thanks for bringing us this news each day. Very helpful. It's really good that you're coming on to watch. We're happy to help. If you have any questions, please do put them here in the on YouTube or also on WeChat here with the Shanghai Daily WeChat page. Somebody here says, if 95% were discovered in central quarantine, I think it's good news. Yeah, that's for sure. Of course, we're not sure of the total number that were found in central quarantine or isolation, to be more accurate. A lot of those numbers aren't out yet, but I think it is hopefully heading about that way. We can have a look at that graph again that we saw on my Twitter page here, and you can see the number of cases found within isolation is quite low. It looks like about 200, but again, I'm not sure of the breakdown, so the mathematics, not sure. But yeah, it will be good if that can keep going down. Somebody asked, Alexander Song, what was with the video circulating across social media last night? Oh, yes. There was a video that was being circulated around social media last night here mainly from Shanghai, featuring a few audio clips from, that were readily available online, put together into kind of a short film package, which touched on a lot of nerves. So yeah, what's more to say? Alex, do you want to add anything to that?
Not really. I think a lot of people did see that, made a lot of people feel a certain way, but now it's difficult to find it. But
yeah, you can still watch that video on YouTube if you want to head along to YouTube. Just search for that video over there. A bit of a sticky situation. Somebody says, so basically just fake news. Sorry, I'm not sure what that comment in regards to. Trevor Noman says, here in the UK, any news about China is fake or twisted to make China look bad. BBC News equals lies. Fair argument, I think. Definitely, if you're looking for news regarding what's happening here in Shanghai and you want it without the dramatic twist, do head along to our website, shine.cn. That's shine.cn, which is the official website for Shanghai Daily. There's a lot of news and updates there, updated every day. So yeah, come along and check that out. Now, Alex, I think we have a video.
Okay,
go ahead.
I just want to say, as we said before on the show, a lot of times in Western news media outlets, they follow the "if it bleeds, it leads" sort of mindset. Right. What that is they'll take the most dramatic, gruesome, bad news. Bad news sells in a lot of those places. They focus on the negative aspects of a situation. Usually a situation has both, two sides to most coins in terms of situations. Whereas you'll find that media in China tends to be more positive about how it looks at stuff. And so I think, while I wouldn't I would hesitate to call places like the BBC fake news. I don't think that that's really a fair assessment. But at the same time, I do think that it can be sensationalized a bit. Like they'll take something that is true and sort of take it in and put it in a context that doesn't really accurately really represent it. I think fake news is a little harsh, but I think it's also not always in the put in the right context, or certain aspects of situations can be over dramatized for effect. So that's how I would sort of.
Yeah, for sure. No, I do. I think fake news is quite a loaded term. Obviously, I think it mainly shot to popularity under the Trump era. I think it probably was around before this, but he certainly popularized it. And now the term fake news is used by all sides. So yeah. There's a comment here from Edwin Zhang who says, "Thanks, gents, for the unbiased and transparent updates. Stay strong, and just know there's a lot of support behind you in Shanghai." Thank you so much. Thank you for coming along and for the support. We'll be here every evening as the lockdown continues. But for now, I will quickly play a video. This video is especially for those of you who are currently under lockdown. So if you're watching from Shanghai or anywhere else in the world where you're stuck at home, this video is by our colleague Emma Leaning. Now you may remember her from she went into central quarantine when this outbreak first started here in Shanghai. So that's how a lot of people came to know her. But she is also a writer, a regular columnist for Shanghai Daily, with her column Mental, which talks about mental health issues. And obviously, under lockdown, mental health is at the fore. So we have a video here where she has some hints and tips for surviving the current situation. So let's check that out now, and we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I've just had a great chat with Jamie Holm, who is the counselling supervisor at Lifeline here in Shanghai. And we were talking about this constant state of anxiety that so many of us find ourselves in. Jamie had some really great tips on how to manage some of those less than helpful moments.
Morning! Lovely to see you.
You too. How are you doing?
I'm all right. What about you? How are you?
So we were locked down before the lockdown because we had a positive case in our compound. So I think we're on day like 37 now. Every little thing is so big. Like there was just no fruit anywhere. And I for a good 10 minutes, legit convinced myself that I was going to die of scurvy. I was Googling scurvy, how long does scurvy take? And then eventually, my prefrontal cortex kicked in and was you're being ridiculous. But it's that's what this state of constant anxiety does to us. It makes us honestly believe that these worst case scenarios, people cough and they assume they have COVID.
Can you explain to me in layman's terms what anxiety actually is?
We have our brain, and there's the prefrontal cortex, which is your thinking brain, where you make rational decisions, you relate to people, and then you have lots of parts of your brain, but then you have the little amygdala, which is in charge of your fight or flight response. So whenever there's a fear, a legitimate fear or not, your amygdala goes into kind of overdrive, and it causes the release of hormones like adrenaline or cortisol. And it's in charge of your fight, flight, or freeze response, which normally is quite, is life-saving. It's quite good. The problem now, there's a big unknown threat of COVID. There's a threat of being taken without your family. There's a threat of not maybe getting enough food, not getting medicine, and just the threat of not knowing what's going on. And so it's your amygdala is constantly seeing things that are, maybe not as threatening as you think. There's a technique we can do. I can do it with you right now, called grounding. It basically gets your focus onto other things around you, and sort of gives that heightened emotion time to dissipate. What you do is you get comfortable and you start with sight. So it's all about just being really aware of the senses. So if you try to find 5 things that maybe you haven't seen before, really look. So just take a minute Yeah, so I just really looked at my bananas I have, at the colors. They've got those brown spots. And then you do it with hearing. So just get really quiet for a minute and think of 5 things you hear. So like I can hear my white noise machine. I can hear my washing machine. I can hear my dog snoring. So you do 5 things you feel like in your body. So like I feel my bum on the chair. I've noticed I've got a little sore back here, probably from the tension, right? So, and it's when you're doing this, you're not judging. So it's not like, oh no, I'm sore, I'm gonna, it's just, oh, I'm sore. With taste as well. So just really like take a nice slow sip. You can smell some coffee, and then as much as you can, focusing on the things that you can control, which are minimal, like, I admit, but every day you wake up and you have at least a choice of what you can wear, or which friend you're going to chat to today, to give yourself some agency back in your life.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
A question I've been asking myself a lot is, does this serve me? It serves me in that I am probably washing my hands a lot more, and I'm cleaning a lot more, and I'm taking more safety precautions, but then it does get to a point where it's not serving me anymore. Does this serve me is something that I really have been asking myself quite a bit.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It was good catching up. Bye, Emma. Thank you.
Bye. Take care. See ya.
Wow, what a cute video.
I think that was really good. I thought that was a really good interview. I thought that she gave a lot of really good advice. I made some notes here. I think definitely, yeah, I agree with what she said about the whole. Well, I agree with everything she said, but particularly the fight or flight thing. It does. Yeah. It's definitely true, at least for me, that even smaller things, even if they might not actually turn out to be like a huge problem, it makes everything is just very daunting. I think part of it is that sort of fight or flight response that's being sort of triggered. I hate to use that word. That's being activated in a lot of us, making everything seem really daunting. And then on top of that, the uncertainty of all of this. As I've said before on our show, I consider myself to be pretty lucky because I'm still able to work. I don't have any children yet. And so there are a lot of anxieties faced by a lot of people that work for a wage, that can't go to work right now, business owners who are, worried about the future of their business. Obviously, some people who have been having difficulty getting enough food, people with children worrying about their school, and then just sort of the future of people, whether they're from this city or another city, or whether they're from another country living here. Just a lot of different things that can sort of pile up. But I think it is important that we kind of, develop some strategies to kind of deal with the stress, because it can be a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a really good, helpful video. Emma's been working quite hard. She's putting together a series now, which we'll be able to play here on the show whenever a new one comes out. And we'll also have Emma on the show for a live chat. She is working, like I said, really hard to find out some information for dealing mentally with the situation we're under, which is stressful for everybody. I saw in the comments just now on YouTube that people were talking about whether or not people of different races or backgrounds deal with it differently. Yeah, I'm not sure. But probably.
Look, I think that it doesn't have anything to do with race. I'm not a big proponent of the concept of race. I think that it doesn't matter what race you are. It's culture, right? If somebody, it's right. Like if you look at someone from one country, parents could move to another country. They're born in that country and they act like people in that country. It doesn't have anything to do with race. I'm not a big fan of the concept of race in general. I think it's mostly made up. But anyway, I will say that it doesn't have anything to do with that. But I will say, in terms of Westerners, I think Western societies in general are more focused on and prioritize things like individual freedoms and liberties for the individual rather, and you know, Eastern societies, and they'll use China in general, probably focus more on collectivism and sort of have a more, so, you know, we'll sacrifice for the good of everyone kind of mentality. Whereas, you know, particularly in my country, the USA, it's all about rugged individualism and freedom, and they almost fetishize it to a degree that can be detrimental. But in any case, so I think you just have to understand it in that context, right? That these people, myself included, come from a place where that's sort of the what's important and prioritized in society. And then when you find yourself in a situation like this, that could never happen in the United States. I don't feel like I need to say that. But for better or worse, you know what I'm saying? And now for me, as somebody who's lived in China for a long time and kind of has a pretty good understanding of the way it works around here, I can vibe with it. You know what I mean? Obviously, I've chosen to live here, and I know what society and culture is like over here, and it's more collectivist, and so that's just what it is. But I do think, yeah, a lot of people who grew up in societies that really focus on the individualistic freedoms of everything, yeah, we're gonna have a harder time with this than people who didn't.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And going back, no, I do. Yeah, I think it comes back to the whole nature and nurture thing. So race, I don't think has any intrinsic, effect on anything like this, but it is all to do with culture, where you grew up, not just your family, but also the society, the kind of society you grew up in. So like you were saying, the West, like the US where you're from and New Zealand where I'm from, it's all pretty much the same, very individualistic, very based on freedoms, individual freedoms. And like you said, it's important to note that, you know, this kind of lockdown we're going under right now here in Shanghai, you're right to say that something like this, something this strict would never happen back home. We had lockdowns in New Zealand that lasted for, I think, over 5 weeks. But of course, unlike here in Shanghai, people could still go out when they wanted to get food, get their supplies, things like that. It was nowhere near as strict as it is here. But also you made another important point, which was one of the things that I think makes you and I and others like us quite advantaged, I think, is that we have a taste of, you know, two sides of the coin. So, you know, you've been here longer than me. I've been here, I think, coming up to 10 years. I really have been able to kind of get used to China and East Asian culture, I guess, in the context of, you know, being here. So it's something, you know, being under this lockdown now, I don't know how I would have coped when I first arrived if I was thrown into a lockdown that's this long. But having been here for this amount of time, getting to understand Chinese culture, East Asian culture, collective culture, it's something you really do get used to. So I think we have, you know, having lived in China for so long, a unique insight into you know, like I said, two sides of the coin. So I think it's really awesome and beneficial. I would really recommend people, if they can, go out and do experience living in other countries, other cultures, as much as you can. It really does, I think, offer a more of an insight into the world as a whole.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I'm at 13 years now, and so I feel like I have a bit of an understanding as well about the way it works around here. And you know, no, I think the lockdowns in our countries, in Western countries, were more focused on like certain businesses being closed and certain events being canceled and things like that.
Right.
And wearing masks, whereas here it's much more strict. It's like, you know, you can't go outside, right? And I think that they would have a really, really tough time enforcing the kind of lockdown in those countries, just because people are focused so much on I do whatever I want and stuff like that. And, you know, look, there are pros and cons to that. There are pros and cons to that. I mean, you know, there are pros and cons to different ways of doing things, and we all kind of understand that. But one of the cons to that is that the pandemic is really hard to control in a place like that. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but I do really think people should, you know, just try to, you know, if you don't understand another country or what's going on, just try, even if you don't have the experiences yourself firsthand, you haven't lived in another country or whatever, just try to put yourself into, it's difficult, but try to put yourself into their shoes, into their culture, into their context, and you might be able to understand better how things are the way they are in different places. And it's not to say any one country or any one culture or system is right or wrong. It's just that they're all very different. And I think that's one of the main problems, this going a bit wide, with the world right now, is that a lot of people are trying to, you know, vie for their system or their way of life to be recognized as the number one. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. So yeah, the more you can try to step back, look at different parts of the world from different contexts, the more you'll understand and the more we'll get along, I reckon. But on that note, we went down a wild path. Should we take a quick look at this new feature? Well, it's not new actually. We do have this comes out every morning on shine.cn, the WeChat group as well. I don't know if you've seen this, Alex. Where is it? Fighting the Pandemic. It's like a cool little newsletter which has some little tidbits and bits and pieces. I'm just trying to load it up.
Some blurbs and things.
There we go.
All right. Yeah, it is interesting. So yeah, in this this is also on our WeChat official account, which is Shine, and in Chinese Shanghai Daily. You can follow us there. But this sort of just is a bit of some quotes, a little bit of information, some little tidbits, and as well as some hot takes or lukewarm takes or cold takes, however you want to, however you might assess the takes that some people have. And so yeah, we can have a quick look at it. Can you go? What was the quote up there? I missed it. Can you scroll back up?
Was it up?
This is either way. That's
more. This is more news. If you want quotes, this is Your Voice Matters, and we take comments from this live stream, as well as comments on our website, comments on our WeChat, and you know, this is a cool take. I think it would be nice if the police do the same, cracking down on delivery man price gouging on customers with taxi drivers. The rides here are insanely expensive. I think they mean to say some drivers are asking for amounts more than flights. I hope to see a similar reportage soon. And I don't know if you've heard about this, Alex, but some people are charging about 3,000 kwai, which is around about 500, I think $500 US or 450 US dollars to get to the airport.
Yeah, which is nuts. Yeah, I've seen that. So I'm in a lot of groups with a lot of people in them, and some of the people are planning on going back to their home countries or going somewhere. A lot of people are, for one reason or another, are wanting to fly somewhere, and they are having a really hard time. Now I know that the airport, as far as I understand, and I'll have to look into this, and we can talk about this tomorrow if we can get more information. But I think the airport shuttle bus is still running, but it's just it's not that extensive, and it is possible that if you're in a lockdown area, you might not be able to get yourself to the place that you need to get that shuttle bus. You know, a lot of people are hiring private driving services. Obviously, they need to have the special license and the COVID tests, and you need to have the COVID. There's a lot of hoops to jump through in order to get that ride. But I have seen a lot of reports of the drivers and the private car service companies really price gouging people, charging renminbi, several thousand. I've seen 1,500, 3,000, 5,000. I've seen quotes as high as literally 12,000, which is $2,000 almost, which is absolutely insane and should definitely be illegal if it isn't. And that is crazy. And there's no, that's just, come on, we gotta be, that's outlandish and absurd. So yeah, you hate to see stuff like that. And I feel for those people in the situation. So, because I'm not going to be leaving during this pandemic. I'm not going to be taking any flights. But yeah, I understand a lot of people need to for one reason or another. And so, yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Hey, this is an interesting one. Somebody here says we're okay to stay home, but please ensure vegetable, meat, milk, etc. issued by the government reaches the people. We cannot stay home and have little or no food. Now, obviously, this is an ongoing concern because food supplies and the Tuangou group buying it can be quite problematic. Obviously, you need to be in sync with a lot of different factors. So it can be hard to get the things you want to buy, including in my Xiaoqu recently, for the last 2 or 3 days, our group buying has been cancelled because of positive cases. So yeah, this is definitely something that we need to see ironed out. We need to see fixed. It's interesting because a lot of people in private have been accusing us of kind of sugarcoating what's going on here in Shanghai. That's not the case at all. And you can see right here on Shanghai Daily, we are not afraid, or whatever you would say, to share these views, problems that are happening here. No one is saying that this lockdown is going smoothly. Yeah. There are plenty of problems, and we do try to address those every day on this broadcast. So yeah, that is one of the comments there.
I would say, as well as I want to say one more thing about that. One particular thing is, I completely agree with the commenter there. I think a lot of the issue is you're having group buys, like, for example, as you described in your compound. It hasn't really been happening in my compound, although we haven't had any positive cases for a while. But yeah, limiting the things that can be brought into the compound. No, I completely agree with limiting any contact. And if they want to disinfect the outside of packages and things like that, I think that that's fine. My thing is, I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence to support the notion that the virus can be transmitted through the surfaces of boxes and bags and packages. We know that it spreads through the air and in droplets, but I just haven't, for me personally, seen a whole lot of evidence to support the notion that it's being passed on the surfaces of boxes and things. And at the end of the day, you know, if you're buying, you know, a quote unquote luxury item, a coffee or whatever, chocolate or something like that, or essentials like meat and vegetables, I don't think the virus is really going to care so much about what it's on. And so, you know, I think this idea that we need to stop deliveries into apartment buildings is not only unsustainable, but it's also, I'm not sure how scientific it is. It seems like a little bit of hysteria to me. And so, and it's also causing people to not get the important things that they need. And so I would really like to see the Juehuis around Shanghai. It's not prevent people from getting the goods they need out of some sort of idea that they're going to get the virus from a plastic bag or something like that. Because I'm not sure if that's a thing. Right. But go ahead.
No, you're right. And a similar situation with the cats and dogs, the pets that we saw. Obviously, that was well, it feels like a long time ago now, but that corgi that was beaten to death, tragically beaten to death in Pudong, was actually to do with a Juehui there who also based that decision on some erroneous information. The idea that cats and dogs can pass on COVID, which obviously we don't see any strong scientific evidence to that point. So a lot of stuff is going on that is regrettable, that is based on a lack of proper information. So hopefully people can really get their head out of the sand, I guess, and stick to science in this situation, and we'll get over a lot of these problems, hopefully. Comment from Mansana. He says supply and demand. I think he's talking about the high prices for rides to the airport.
Oh, yeah. You know, you can't leave stuff like that up to supply and demand 100%. I mean, like, you know, yeah, okay, like that doesn't. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that doesn't mean that I don't think price gouging. This is a crisis. The city is in crisis. We can't let people price gouge because because people need it. You know what I mean? Like that's the same thing. The city has been cracking down on people price gouging for food and for other things that people need. And I think that, you know, they should crack down on price gouging for everything. Price gouging is in my mind a despicable thing to do to people just to make a few extra dollars during a crisis for the city. I think that you're taking advantage of the struggles of everyone, and that should be punished. Exactly.
Yeah, no. No, we don't want to let the market run riot. You know, supply and demand is an important aspect of, you know, the economy. But in situations like this, this should not be allowed to happen. Not price gouging during an emergency is actually absolutely tragic. And hopefully they'll put an end to that. So that was a good comment that we saw there in the, what is it called? The Shanghai Daily. Anyway, it's like a daily little newsletter. You can subscribe, like I said. By going along to our WeChat, which is Shanghai Ribao, Shine, or you can see it on shine.cn as well. But for now, Alex, I'm going to play our last video for the day, which is to do with work resumption going on in Shanghai. This video was supplied by Xinhua News Agency. Obviously, work is not being resumed for the majority of people. I think it is still mainly in relation to factories and stuff like that. But let's check out this video. Maybe we can learn something. And then when we come back, we'll say goodbye. Okay.
，the resurgence of COVID-19 has caught the attention worldwide and also has taken the manufacturing industry in Shanghai by surprise. But the good news is amid the the full-scale efforts to combat resurgence, there are some government ensures the guidance for some enterprises so that they can resume their produce.
Yes, I talked with the Quanta Shanghai Manufacturing City last Saturday, which is a key producer of Apple's MacBook models
and a supplier of onboard computers and control units for Tesla China. And the company was resume production with about 2,000 staff members working under closed-off management. The manufacturer applied for work resumption on last Friday, of course, on the premise of strict epidemic prevention and control. And the first batch of overseas products officially shipped on Monday after company resumed production. So what I can see, China is now making all-out efforts to contain the latest COVID-19 resurgence while promoting work resumption to mitigate its impact on manufacturing and business activities.
Some companies like the BASF, Dr. Morrison, you are the I heard that you haven't been suspended the produce since the end of March, right?
Yeah, that's true actually. So since the end of March, we've operated in closed loop management style. So we've managed to keep all of our bases operating during the lockdown. And that's because BASF is a chemical company and our business really covers a whole wide range of industries. If you take products like medical masks and protective suits, then a lot of these materials are needed to produce them.
And I wonder that why you made the decision of continuing producing during this lockdown management.
In order to ensure the stability of the chemical production and supply chain systems, we thought it very important that we continue to produce. So we've really made every effort to overcome all of these difficulties with logistics, production, personnel shortages, and try and ensure the stability of our production and supply as much as we possibly can.
How do you to protect the health and safety of your staff? And meanwhile, you also keep the factory operation going.
Yeah, so all of this is not easy. So to ensure safe operation, we've taken a lot of preventative measures. So including introducing remote working arrangements for the employees that can work from home. So we've equipped them with personal care kits. We have medical aid available to cater for their safety and well-being. We've allocated a lot of resources and personnel to ensure sufficient food and meal supply, as well as take care of the needed sanitary and disinfection measures. So we welcome the government's decision to facilitate work resumption of the key industries. I think this is not just important for us and for the industries, but for society as a whole.
By interviewing people from different companies, I can see that the pandemic is just a short-term challenge or a short-term test. And in the long term, the China and Shanghai or China will still be stabilized this supply chain position in the world. So what do you two comment on this topic?
None of the advantages that China has have gone away because of this short-term lockdown in Shanghai. It's very important that we do everything we can to speed up the resumption. And once the logistics improves, then I think we'll see a rapid return to normal working mode.
Well, I think easy enough to say, but yeah, once the logistics resume, we will see ourselves going back to normal working mode. I think maybe easier said than done, Alex.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we thought that we would be able to, well, first we thought that we didn't need to lock down the city at all. And then we thought that it would be 4 days here and 4 days there, obviously. So yeah, pretty much everything that's happened over the last month and a half to 2 months has been easier said than done. That would be my response to that. However, I share their optimism in that can be done at some point in the future. And it's good to see that some people can get back to work, hopefully. Again, we've got pretty strict pandemic prevention measures in place here, at least when compared to a lot of other places. And so I hope that they are also adhering with safety rules that are in line with those policies, because I would hate to see a whole bunch of workers have to get sent to central quarantine because they had to go out and go back to work. So I hope that they do a good job with that. And so that then it's good. It's important that certain businesses and industries get back to functionality,
Yeah. No, I did notice in the video that he was talking about those factories being under closed loop management. So for anyone who doesn't know what that means, that basically means that the whole factory is sealed off, more or less. The people who work there need to live there. They can't leave. Obviously, they'll have some kind of dormitories on the campus, not campus, on site. And all the food and supplies they need will be delivered in through safe measures while maintaining the closed loop system. And basically what that will mean is, in theory, fingers crossed, that coronavirus won't be able to get in there. So obviously that's something we may be seeing in the next few weeks. And it's definitely already in place in a number of factories here in Shanghai, like we just saw. But it's important to note that a closed loop kind of working situation cannot work for most people. Obviously, we have some people down at Shanghai Daily who have been staying there now for 23 days, putting the newspaper together every day. But that is, not ideal. It is not the sort of place where, a full workforce could stay, live and work, eat, sleep, and everything. So this kind of situation really is only suited to factories, and it's not something we're going to see rolled out across all of Shanghai for white-collar workers, restaurant workers, and so on. So we still need to get those numbers down, keep fighting, stay at home, do our best to stay negative while staying positive, and try to get through this, I think.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Closed loop systems have worked in certain situations during this pandemic, but they are obviously easier said than done in a lot of ways. And so hopefully they can succeed in that effort.
Yeah, it seems tough. Anyway, I think that's about all we have for today. Alex, did you have anything else you want to add?
Let me check my notes here. But I did want to comment and laugh a little bit about the lady that Emma talked to about mental health, who had the great tips for everyone to help de-stress. She was talking about, I had a big chuckle when she said she thought she was going to get scurvy from not eating enough. I had a good laugh at that one. I had to mute my mic so that you can hear me laugh. Pretty funny. And of course, but she was right. She was like, and then I came to my senses and I realized that's crazy. And yeah. So, but I think she highlighted a good point, is that we can, during times of high stress like this and pressure, we can take small things and kind of blow them out of proportion in our minds. And so, yeah, I'll be following some of her tips that she gave to sort of stay level-headed.
Yeah, no, she did have some good tips, and maybe you guys can try those out now. Try to control some of the things you can control, which is which friends you talk to every day, who you're going to block. Focus on what things you can hear, what things you can smell, what things you can taste, and we'll get through this together. But until then,
say one more thing. Do you remember the story? Remember the story from Wuhan in 2020 when this whole pandemic started, and there was a girl in a group of expats in Wuhan who was just freaking out. Do you remember that? What was her name? I can't remember.
I don't. What happened?
No, she was just like completely. I mean, she obviously, it was a serious situation, but she was just absolutely just going off, like completely like freaking. And it was really. It's become kind of a funny meme. I can't remember her name right now. I'll see if I can mention it on the show, because it's something that.
Yeah, see if you can bring it tomorrow.
Popular memes. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough about that. We can call it a night for tonight, and we'll get back to you tomorrow with any happenings in the next 23 hours between now and 7:30 p.m. Beijing time tomorrow.
Right. Share with us some of your memes, and we'll see you tomorrow night, you guys. See you later.
All right. See ya.